You're watching Force 13's live streaming service. Welcome to another installment of Force 13 Live. We're covering the soup that is the Western Pacific tonight. We're entering the early hours of Sunday, July 22nd. It's just reached midnight UTC around the world, you could say. 8 PM on the US East Coast, which is currently experiencing a very interesting feature, which Strat will probably talk to us about in great detail. David will probably also be talking to us about a lot of what's going on in the Western Pacific. Now the question is, who do we start with? I'll let David begin.
Thank you, Nathan. And again, here we are with another live stream, and we're focusing on the Westpac, where we have multiple systems. And where does one start?
I think we ought to start with the named storm Ampil. A yellow typhoon warning is in effect along the coast of China.
Right. And we have Ampil located at...
It is literally just off the coast, about to make landfall in a few hours.
It's not looking impressive at all.
It hasn't been looking impressive for days. Yeah. Hello, Strat. How are you?
Doing all right. It's pretty fortunate for the Shanghai area, actually, because the storm had a lot of time to get its act together, and it just never really got the chance to do it.
Now, we're looking at the wider picture here in the Western Pacific. It's a complete mess. At the top of your image is Ampil getting close, not making landfall yet, but getting close to the coast of China. We'll get a zoom in on that one for you shortly. The remnants of Son Tinh are over in the Gulf of Tonkin, off the coast of Hainan Island. A lot of its convection is actually to the east of Hainan now. Then you've got Tropical Depression Josie, named locally by the Philippines. Signal 1 warnings in effect for the northernmost islands. That is just about to graze the coast of Taiwan now as well, and could develop into a tropical storm. Down there in the Philippine Sea, you've got an Invest. That's Invest 96W. That may well become our next storm. And then as we move further east, on our right-hand side there is the one of the newest tropical depressions. That one is 14W, if I'm not mistaken. The one that's closest to the international dateline. David, is that correct?
Yes, sorry, I'm just bringing the information up. Near Wake Island.
Yeah.
I think that's the one. Wake Island. I have been monitoring that one, but I wasn't expecting to see so many systems on the radar. But I think it's a monsoon trough that is generating all these low pressure systems, but I think the one that's surprising me, Nathan, is Son Tinh.
Really?
Which was, yeah, across Vietnam, went to the north of Laos and
Laos.
Yes, and now back over the water.
Yeah, the fact that it came all the way back and regenerated is pretty surprising.
Yes, I support that.
Indeed, usually we call it a foregone conclusion when the storm goes over there, but sometimes you do get a few rebounding and circling around. Just in case you wanted to know the current temperatures around where we are right now, Force 13 HQ at 60 degrees overcast, Force 13 US HQ 102 right now in Texas. And the temperatures over along the border between Oklahoma and Texas has been the hot point in the last few days over there, with temperatures into the 110s.
And over here on the east coast of Australia, the 15 and 16 degrees Celsius. going to drop down to 8 Celsius. We had 4 Celsius 3 days ago, and I'm sitting here with a blanket and a jacket and a jumper. So, and
Jeez.
for New Zealand, they're in for severe weather later next week.
So, if we haven't established it already, lots to talk about. Let's see here. I've completely lost my train of thought. That's good, isn't it? Ah, yes. If you enter our community tab right now on Force 13, you'll see... okay, I was supposed to appear at that point. I'll appear somewhere else then. On Force 13's community tab, we have a poll going tonight again. Do you think the Atlantic will see a major hurricane in August? Strat, your thoughts on that first.
It's probably far too early to tell. The models only go out to August 3rd or 4th right now, and they don't show anything, but that's so far out that you can't say anything. But then you have the other 30 or so days of the month where anything can really happen. The atmosphere isn't really the most favorable, but you never know. No one really expected Beryl to become a hurricane, but it did, so you can't really say anything for sure.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's where we are at this point. Of course, during the whole hour, we'll be taking your questions and comments, and if you've been looking at the schedule at the end of this hour, we are running the first episode of Holos Unleashed, where Marcel takes the reins of Force 13 for an hour. In the meantime, get your questions in, because the seriousness occurs in this hour, and we'll be hoping to assist. There were many that came in near the beginning.
Someone's asking if 96W is a tropical system yet.
Well, what do you mean by the terminology?
They're asking if it's like a named system, a depression, a storm.
No, it's nothing yet, but I'd say it's likely that this system will develop.
96W is currently located near 11.6 degrees north, 140.5 degrees east, about 190 nautical miles northeast of Yap. Animated and enhanced infrared satellite imagery shows the low-level circulation, persistent convection, and low-level banding beginning to wrap into the center. A microwave image depicts low-level circulation with persistent deep convection located over the center and shadow convection primary to the south and southeast. The disturbance is currently located in an area of excellent equatorial divergence, 5 to 10 knots, vertical wind shear. Sea surface temperature 29 to 30 Celsius, and that seems to be the pattern up there in the Westpac. The Joint Typhoon Warning Centre, Nathan, global models are in agreement that the system will track in a northerly direction and intensify over the next few days.
Yeah, there's a lot to track right now, and
yes.
Let's actually get some visual perspective on the track forecasts here. I've got a few lined up. This is the Joint Typhoon Warning Centre's forecast for Ampil now. They say it's got winds of 50 miles per hour. The JMA say that its winds are 60 miles per hour, around 100 kilometers per hour, 80 to 100. And then just north of Shanghai is the expected landfall zone, and then it will track inland. It could be a bit of a rainmaker along the coast of China there as it moves towards Beijing and then off towards the northeast eventually. The chance of tropical storm conditions on the left-hand side of your image there, and there's also Josie there too. Let's now look at what has been called Josie by the Philippines. It's not been named internationally. The next name on the list, by the way, is Wukong. It's 13W, and there it is, expected to pass through the westernmost Japanese islands, the Ryukyu Islands, as a tropical storm. Very similar place to where Maria struck a few weeks ago. It'll be intersecting Maria's track as it moves towards the north and then northwest, again into the coast of China, which seems to be getting a lot of activity this year so far. and this is also Ampil right now, the diagnostics here. So you can see the models unanimously predict weakening, wind shears on the rise, landfalls coming up, not much to say on that, except for the extended track there, which calls for it to move towards the northeast as I stated, but all the time inland. This is Josie. The CTCX is a bit of an outlier there, predicting maybe a run at Typhoon status possibly, but most of the other models are keeping it weak, mainly due to wind shear, by the looks of things, which will be in the moderate to high range. Sea surface temperatures are good, relative humidity is good, will be slowly decreasing later on. I think we don't have anything else at this point, so we just have those. Shanghai, 68% chance of tropical storm conditions from Ampil, so that may be an interesting note for you there. And then as we look at our other imagery here on our screen, you can see what this interesting feature in the Atlantic, not tropical in any nature, but Strat is fascinated by it. Do you want to talk about that?
Well, I mean, I just find it interesting over the past couple days because I'm right in the line of fire of it right now in New England, and seeing it kind of develop into a very unusual summer season nor'easter is pretty interesting to see at the moment, because you very rarely, seldom see a system of this kind in the Northeast at this time of year. Usually they're in the winter, but to see one in the summer is very interesting.
Yeah. Lovely 1 minute imagery from Ghost 16 there as well. I believe the 1 minute imagery from Himawari, or is it the 2.5 minute, the rapid scan imagery, is on Ampil, of course. So you can see the latest visible there. I'm just going to blow this up for the viewers shortly, as soon as I can get another view on it as well, so I can get everything in order. And we can look through it together here.
Yeah, I think something interesting to look at is 14W, because right now the current GFS run, the 18Z, shows it reaching Category 2 status on the Saffir-Simpson scale, actually.
That's the one out east.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. I didn't see many of the other models doing that, though.
It might be an outlier. It's the one I'm seeing right now. I can always go through a couple more.
You're not talking about 96W, are you?
No, this is 14W.
Because 96W is expected, well, not expected, but the HWRF has a Category 2 at the end of the run, aiming for Taiwan.
The GFS develops it much slower. It doesn't really develop it until 5 to a week out, and it stalls it out for the next week before developing it.
Alright, we've got a lot of questions about Atlantic development in the next week or so, and I am very intrigued to be watching what's going on in the Atlantic in the next week as well, because I'm taking a trip down there in early August, so I look forward to see whether there's any tropical cyclone activity. I doubt it, and the Atlantic looks to be dead in the next week or so.
The models show absolutely nothing. There was a couple yesterday trying to say that this thing on the East Coast might be subtropical, but everything's dropped it. It obviously is not going to reach any of that nature.
We'll try and get some views on that a little bit later on as well.
Someone's asking if we think Ampil could have been a typhoon.
No.
I think the answer to that,
no.
Well, not anymore, but it had its own chance to run at it, but it just completely lapsed on it.
Now, we're looking towards the center of that storm, and it must be very close to land now.
Yeah, I'd say maybe an hour or two away from landfall at most. It might make landfall during Holos Unleashed. Someone's... Yeah, go ahead. No,
I was just going to severe tropical storm Ampil, according to the JMA 9 UTC today, 22nd, and central pressure forecast to be 990 millibars. So it is on a weakening trend.
It ought to be. It has been looking shoddy the whole time, but of course
yes,
tropical storm force winds are still definitely possible.
Someone is saying in chat that Ampil might be the biggest disappointment since Felipe.
Ouch. Ouch. We've had 51 votes so far in the poll, by the way. 65% think that there will be an a major hurricane in August in the Atlantic. That's an interesting figure. I thought there'd be a bit more towards the yes. It did start very highly favoured for yes, but it's going down. You can make a difference in that poll as well by visiting our community page on the YouTube channel. This is live for this hour. We're 15 minutes into it. We're talking about everything that's going on in the soup that is the West Pacific right now. Make the most of it. We're only here for this hour. The following hour is Saturday night's premiere of the comedy show hosted by Marcel. And if you know Marcel, then you might want to leave the building. But you might be curious to see what he's up to. Anyway, we'll let you decide on that one. But this is the latest infrared imagery of Ampil as it nears the coast of China. Shanghai is right in the middle of all that, and all of its cities around it as well. Huge population centers in that area.
Yep. I think something interesting to note with Ampil, at least according to the GFS, is that it keeps it close enough to the coast that it wants Ampil to keep tropical storm force winds while it's inland for another 2 days, or another day and a half, as it moves closer to Beijing before it actually weakens out.
And I want to at some point bring up the expected rain totals as well. I'm gonna do my best to bring that up as soon as I can.
I can actually sew a precipitation model for it once I launch that up.
I was just going to grab it myself here.
Oh, you were?
Was trying to. I've got too many things going on at the minute to handle.
I have it right here. I have it right here. Here it is.
Okay, well, hold on a minute. Hold on. What's Strat looking at?
This is the precipitation forecast rain rates.
Oh, there's mine. Let's just get back to Strat's
You
first.
have yours? It's pretty similar. Greens to yellows to oranges are going to be higher rain rates. And it shows pretty heavy rain from the system as it moves into China, you know, weakening as it moves northwards.
And that's another storm there. Could you
This is 96W right there.
Mm-hmm. Could you bring up the wind graphics?
The wind graphic, I will do that as well.
Since we're here now.
Before. Let's launch that one up as well. This is what I mean. It has
Ampil moving in. You might want to play it. Might want to play it real slowly. This because there's a lot going on in the imagery. So let's begin at the beginning there.
This is Ampil right here. This is right now.
Very large wind field to the north. You can see Josie moving through Japan there. The storm on the right-hand side, 14W. Son Tinh and Remnants moving into southern China there. And 96W starting to develop in the Philippine Sea.
And then
14W, Typhoon. Category 2, Category 3 even up there, according to the GFS.
And things cool off for about a day, and then you have this weird thing to the east develop. And then 96 finally develops.
Now that looks like another tropical cyclone on the right.
It does. It's really stretched out, but...
And that's how long away? 5 days?
Let's take a look. This is going to be... Yeah, this is 5 days out.
5 days could be another storm over there out at sea.
And then by 7 days, DFS develops 96W into a typhoon.
And that will be the next one to watch, definitely.
It completely stalls it out over this time. It moves...
Yeah.
It moves a bit north the first couple days and then stalls out for the next 3 to 4 days after that. So, you know, upwelling could be a factor.
It's a lot like 2016 at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah. And then, you know, after that, you know, you can't really trust the models that far out, but there's, you know, Just today, some of the models been back and forth from shooting it out to the northeast from all the way back to saying it'll hit Taiwan. So, you know, really widespread. It's something to keep a track of in the next week or two.
Gee.
So I'll cut this out.
I'll just bringing up something else here. I was going to bring you back to the rainfall forecast here. We'll get to that comment in a minute. The rainfall here, the wind swathe showing the rain swathe rather showing Ampil. You can see the yellow colors there. 4 or more inches of rain, especially in the Beijing area. Could get to 8 inches of rainfall over there. Strat, go.
I was going to say there's a comment that someone mentioning the GFS going crazy this week, saying that 14W would reach 892 millibars. What do we think of the GFS constantly doing that?
Well, let's remember what it did with Noru.
It did that for weeks as well, at least a week and a half.
And I just want to show 96W on this visualization as well. Massive rain there, look at that. But the wind. HWRF thinks that this will happen from 96W. Take it with a grain of salt. Category
what
2
is this?
In the westernmost Japanese Ryukyu Islands.
How far out did this one go?
That's in 5 days.
5 days. That's interesting because some of the models completely stall it out, and this one's taking it northwest.
Really curving it towards Taiwan and same place as Maria potentially.
Because there's a mix between the models. Some of it are trying to take it straight west, while other ones are trying to stall it out and make it wait like a week.
But hey, this is an extreme version at the minute. It's not what the majority of models are saying yet. I'm sure we'll take a look at that again one day.
Nathan, Tropical Depression 14 is forecast to track initially north-northwest through the next 36 hours before changing to a northward direction before finally turn back to the northeast within 48 hours.
Yeah.
And the track speed will fluctuate between 6 and 9 knots during the first 72 hours. And the system will slowly intensify under marginal favourable conditions across the next 72 hours. Sea surface temperature remains high, although ocean heat content values are low.
Now, here's something interesting to look at. This is why the HWRF might be an outlier. It develops another small tropical storm beat just south of 96W and has to do a Fujiwara effect on it.
Now that
might be why it curves it west.
Yeah.
If you look here, I'll screen share this wide shot of the HWRF model on tropical tidbits here. You'll see, you know, it develops the storm quickly. This is 54 hours out from 18Z.
Oh dear,
It develops
oh dear.
a small.
It's
It
tiny.
develops a small storm. Yeah, it develops a small storm here, right down south of it, and it does a loop around, and that might push.
Now that was the same one that GFS
Westward.
had it pushing way out east.
Yeah, if I go to the GFS model for the
Look at
same
that
time
tunnel.
frame, if I quickly run back around here, switch things back up to normal.
He's running around.
And this is the GFS. It doesn't develop it for days. Here's 96W.
Yeah.
And then it runs it out east and then back west towards Taiwan.
Oh, gee.
The models are all over the place right now with these storms. It's pretty crazy.
Well, if you were Taiwan right now, I'd be a bit worried.
Someone's asking which system will be named first, Josie or
question.
14W.
Good question, isn't it? To which we don't yet know the answer.
Well, what do you think personally?
I know what 14W looks like. I'm just reacquainting myself with Josie. I don't think it looked very good. So my guess, it is a guess, would be 14W at the minute.
13W is just a blob of convection from what it seems on the floater right here. If you're looking at the GFS, it is going to be 14W as well.
Yeah. Bringing us back to the wide shot here. Again, pointing out all of these systems. The northernmost there, about to reach China. That's Ampil, with a very broad wind field in the north. Watch out for that. In the middle, nearly in the middle, near Taiwan, that is Philippine name Josie, moving away from the Philippine area. On the far left-hand side is what's left of Son Tinh, which has regenerated into a tropical depression. Yes, it's not gone. 96W in the Philippine Sea, near the bottom of our image, and just offshot to the right is 14W, which I think may be our next named storm.
And someone's also asking how many of these storms we think will end up being named.
Maybe all of them.
I think the only one that might not be named is 13W, because it's, you know, initially they were trying to say it'd be a typhoon and everyone's backed off from it at this point.
Yeah. Okay.
And yes.
Yeah.
I was just reading a comment, and yes, the GFS does say that at least 4 storms could form.
We've got a lot of questions to catch up on. Did you think that Ampil could have been an extra tropical system along the way? Well, it looked appalling when it was striking Okinawa.
Well, it was subtropical earlier, was it not? That's what you said in your latest update.
I did not say it was subtropical.
Oh, that's what the title said.
STS means severe tropical storm.
Oh
in this
my
area.
goodness.
Sorry about the confusion, but that's how the JMA labeled it as well.
I've just made a fool of myself.
You have. More questions. When will the West Pacific Basin be quiet? Early August ? Well, usually, you know, when we have a period like this, there is a little stoppage, but then it really ramps up again later on in the month or in September. Very rare that you get a very quiet period, but it did happen in a year not too long ago. Can't remember which one now.
Well, according to the models, going into August, things will not be calm at all, so...
No.
Looks like it'll be pretty busy the next couple weeks here at Force 13 HQ, covering everything.
Very busy.
That Canadian Manectric wants a shout out because they're going in for surgery on Tuesday. That doesn't sound very great. I hope it goes well.
You know, I guess we'll give a little shout out. Hopefully you get through everything alright.
And Norway Tracking wants to know, why did all of these storms just pop up out of nowhere? Welcome to the Western Pacific.
It's the MJO is very favorable right now, right?
Yes, it's the MJAO, and also...
And isn't it moving across the Pacific?
Southwest monsoon. Yes.
Isn't it
Very
moving towards?
strong.
Isn't it moving towards the Atlantic later on, as it often does?
Let me see if I can find a forecast model
Hank was
for it.
talking to us a little bit about that a few days ago. So there was the possibility we could see something in the Atlantic in early August, I believe.
Let me pull this.
That's speculation right now.
Let's see. The models cluster it right. It's very strongly in the Western Pacific right now, but the models do try to shift it in between the Western Pacific and the Atlantic by early August.
Fascinating.
It's hard to tell because there's no unity at all. They're all spread out in a spider web.
Let's move on. Oliver Norris says, don't trust the GFS. They expected a Cat 3 in the Gulf. They got nothing.
That is true.
Don't trust the GFS beyond 5 days. Don't trust any model beyond 5 days. Beyond 5 days. Except the CMC. Don't trust the CMC beyond an hour. Anyway, okay, you did that question. And an MGO question there as well, so we answered that one just then.
Strack, can you bring up 96W on Tropical Tidbits, the track?
Let me see if I can pull it up for you quickly. Let's find 96W all the way down here. The GFS ensemble is, if you want me to share screen with this, David, the GFS ensemble is very flat on it, showing, you know, a general northward movement over the next 3 days before either stalling, splitting west, or splitting east. The models don't know which one it wants to choose for the ensemble. CMC moves it due north, and then global models, it just shows the GFS. It tries to do this weird little dance, but if we go to the forecast models for the Western
Just a moment,
Pacific
I'm just
as a
getting
whole-
that on the picture now.
Okay. Alright,
There
you're
we
just getting on picture now. I'll go all the way back down here. You can see the active system page is filled to the bone here. This is the GFS ensemble plots for 96W.
Yeah, look at the
wow.
circles.
They move generally northward over the next 3 days, but then you either see a stall, a westward movement, or an eastward movement. There's no in between here.
David? The right-hand
I'm
side
just-
there? Your favourite, isn't it? Loop-de-loop.
I've got something I'll say off here.
We've just annoyed David.
Yeah. Hang on, that's 96W.
If I go all the way up here and go to the forecast models and go back to the Western Pacific, we'll see the Euro. This is 96W
Oh, no,
here.
oh, no.
This is what the Euro wants to do. The Euro loops it into a circle into Japan. All right.
Now, hold on there. 14W into Hokkaido. Am I right?
Let's see. This is 14W here. This is 3 days out. 4, 5. It weakens into almost nothing, making landfall up here in the northern island.
Very interesting.
That's what the Euro calls for, at least. But the models are all over the place with these storms right now in terms of direction, especially 96W.
If you're wondering what it looks like right now, 96W on visible imagery looks like this. Not very impressive just yet.
Nathan, when's the last time you seen such activity in the Westpac?
2016.
This is much more active than earlier this year when we had those, like, you know, 2 or 3 train of storms developed at the same time off of the coast of China. We had 7 and 8W at the same time in the same frontal system. Someone is asking why the PAR is so active this year.
Yeah, well, it's active every year. It is actually statistically the most busiest part of the world in tropics. By some distance, actually.
And someone else is asking, where's Force 13 US HQ? It is in Texas. So
Yeah. As I said earlier on, very hot over in Texas and in Oklahoma today. Along the border between those two states, 110 right now, the current temperature. And that's late in the day as well. Who knows what it was earlier? I mean, I would know, but I haven't checked.
oh, it was sweltering there earlier. I can guarantee that.
So again, there's a visible view of 96W, and as we pan out here to the wider view of this part of the globe, the very busy part, it really is an outbreak of tropical cyclones right now. The far left-hand side there, that's the remnants or tropical depression Son Tinh. That little blob to the east of it is the Philippine name Josie. To the north there, near the top, Ampil about to strike China. 96W, which we looked at, and on the far right there, it is 14W. Let's just see if we can get a close-up on the visible of that and see whether its circulation is holding up well and how it looks. Yeah, lacking some convection, the western side completely devoid of pretty much anything. We assume there's a center of circulation in there somewhere, but I don't know about that.
I'm gonna take a look at
The
this.
JTWC must be convinced because they've designated it, but the JMA have not last time I checked.
it's pretty far off to the east. So it's hard to get some of the little looks at what the wind shear might be like for it because it's off the map. Actually, no, it's right here. I'm sorry, I'm just not
Yeah, it's
thinking.
just off your map. It's not... It's
No, it's right here in the center of my map. I'm just not thinking. This is on the shear tendency map, it is fighting some wind shear.
Could you show us this?
Yeah, right here. I'll pop it up.
Much obliged.
This is 14W right here and 25 knot wind shear. So it's going to be sheared pretty heavily.
Now this here,
here it is again.
This here is part of the reason why none of these storms have developed into strong typhoons. There's a bit of dry air around as well, but I guess the main reason, it's the same reason as in 2016 when we had all of them storms forming. Storms like, well, you know, Lion Rock was dancing around. There was quite a few others as well. Malawi, I think, was part of all that. I can't remember. Or maybe it was Kompasu. All those names just get confusing after a while. So many. But, you know, all them storms dancing around, they're competing with one another. And it's a struggle to get a strong typhoon like when we had Maria. And it's quite similar to 2016 in that it started with a very strong storm and then a lot of weaker ones. Nipatak, and this time it was Maria, which was a Category 5. A little bit different circumstances, though. And, of course, we had previous storms this year, at least.
Right now, it's like, you know, a lot of the storms don't have a ton of wind shear, but they're fighting dry air. That's 13W or Josie right here, and then Son Tinh as well, because it's right near lots of land. And then same with Ampil, it's about to make landfall in Shanghai. This is a couple hours old, so it's much closer to land now.
A question, is there an invest near Hawaii?
I think if I go back
yes.
here, that 91C is still a thing?
Yep, 91. To the south, I think.
No, they just took it off. It is no longer a thing.
I don't remember it being on for a long time.
It was here earlier today, I think, actually, but
Yeah,
it is not. Although 90E right here, it does get closer to Japan if you go 5 to 6 days out to some of the models, but they generally show it tracking south of Hawaii.
Well, I'm going to show people a National Hurricane Center page. Two systems in the East Pacific in the next 5 days. One of them's about to get into the Central Pacific. It's at 135 point something west. As of 5 p.m., 20% chance in the next 5 days. This other system here, about 115, 114 west. 50% chance in the next 5 days, only 10 in the next 2 days though. And then you've got another system that could pop up behind it. This is the MJO coming to the East Pac, isn't it?
Yeah, it is shifting.
40% chance in the next 5 days for that next one. Central Pacific itself, there is that other one there as well. Yeah, 20%. That is the one. Yep, 147 degrees west, 20%. So there are two areas in the region.
No, one there as well.
But neither of them have a very high chance of developing.
Yeah, and see.
In case you were wondering about the Atlantic, diddly squat. Not
Absolutely
a sausage.
Nothing. There's some extra tropical systems in the basin that were causing some stir, but nothing tropical of nature. And then Norway Tracking's asking us if we were looking at the little swirl that hit Nova Scotia earlier today.
There was. I noticed that on the Go 16 imagery.
I want to see if I can actually find it in some of the satellite imagery shots from earlier today. If I go here and go to Atlantic wide shot. Yeah, you can see the little swirl there up in the far. If I zoom in really far here.
Yo, well, Strat, we can't see that.
Well, don't worry, I'm gonna share my screen right now. I'm gonna.
You know, I'm just saying it's not great explaining it when we can't see it.
No, you're. Yeah, there's a swirl. It's right here. You can see, you know, pretty heavy rain, and it's gonna be moving northeast into Nova Scotia, Newfoundland. It was pretty noticeable in satellite earlier today. Nothing tropical, but it had its own little swirl with it as well.
Here's a better view on the visible imagery today. Yep, geocolor imagery. Tiny swirl just moving along the coast of Nova Scotia, right up there at the top right hand side. And then you've got this primary feature, this non-tropical system that does appear to have a circulation moving through the US East Coast, just situated off the coast of Maryland right now, off the Delmarva Peninsula. And then I expect it's going to move either along the coast or maybe skirt inland a little bit. I believe
the models do say that it's going to skirt inland over New Jersey and Pennsylvania.
I believe there is some flood-related information on that. It's not really what we're covering today, but just in case you are concerned for that area, there is a flash flood warning in Charles County, and also for Fairfax and southeastern Prince William counties. Those are all in that area. Virginia, Maryland, just southwest of DC. And the whole area is in a flood warning, if I'm not mistaken. A large part of that region. So obviously there's a lot of local warnings, regional warnings out there at present. Well, going back to the world at large, and we're looking predominantly at tropical storm, severe tropical storm as the Japanese call it, Ampil. Not subtropical, but severe, about to make landfall near Shanghai, who have a 68% chance of tropical storm conditions from this. The worst part is in the northern side, with winds expected to reach 100 kilometers per hour with higher gusts. Pressure is estimated around 985 millibars. David, you got anything for us here?
No, it's pretty quiet. I'm just waiting for the next lot of updates, but I've just been looking at the Central Weather Bureau, the Chinese office, and Picasa, and the information's the same.
Yeah, I saw on the screen there just a second ago, you had a shot of the HWR forecast for Ampil. It showed that the storm might have tropical storm force winds sustained up all the way towards Beijing.
That's a possibility.
I don't know if it's a brownwater effect or its proximity to water, but it does tend to show slow weakening of the system.
I wouldn't say it's really anything to do with that, but it is certainly a warm area at this time of year, so that must certainly help. There's a lot of water bodies along the coast of China in that area too. It's less mountainous, and you know, there's some significant rivers and lakes to the northwest of Shanghai along that whole coastal area. So I don't know what the water temperature in those lakes are, but that may also have a contributing effect. Once you get up towards Beijing, there isn't so many, and I'm guessing the altitude rises. But I'm not so sure. You're looking at that image there now. There's not much to say that tropical storm conditions are going to prevail for a long time after landfall, because they're all remaining out at sea, and you would expect that because it's not very far inland. The center of the storm, you probably won't see much going on, but the edges that are over the coastline as those bands come in, those bands are still being fueled by the sea, even if the center of the storm isn't.
Yeah, exactly. That might help fuel some remaining strength.
So I think that's what you'll see there along the whole of coast, halfway up the coast there. Indeed, the percentage chances are still fairly high further north as well. All right.
And Nathan, tropical depression 11 Son Tinh, 132 nautical miles southeast of Hanoi, tracking east-southeast, and it's expected to be curved to the north.
JTWC now expects it not to re-reach tropical storm status as it did earlier today.
Did they? I never saw them, actually.
Earlier today, they did predict it would reach tropical storm status again, but they have redacted that idea. They say that it'll move into Hainan Island within the next 18 to 24 hours, and then recurve north and then northwest back into Vietnam.
Doing another loop. And then it'll come back out again.
Yes.
Who knows?
And
you never know.
Following on back to the northwest.
Back to the northwest.
Son Tinh. Yep.
So, Son Tinh is the very small system to the left-hand side. Let's go to the visible on that, see if we can pan this image here and get to Son Tinh with the latest image. Hiwari 8 takes these images every 10 minutes or better. Better if it's in the target area, which Ampil is. Here's Son Tinh. Let's just see if we can get the... It's quite difficult to see the land areas there. That's just to give you a reference of where the coastlines are in relation to Son Tinh. As you can see, most of the convection is displaced east now of Hainan Island. Not quite sure where the center is, though, in all of that.
The center is actually west of Hainan Island.
Yeah, that's what I still thought. So the center's somewhere over to the west. Most of the convection's off to the east. I don't see much happening with that. And I have to say, Josie, the Philippine name, looks awful as well.
It looks like Son Tinh did back when it was called Henry to the west of the Philippines. It's just a blob of convection. There's not much else with it.
Yeah, interesting. We're still running that poll until the end of the hour on our stream as well. Go to our community page on YouTube and you'll be able to see the poll in our latest post. I can now say the question is, do you think the Atlantic will see a major hurricane in August? And you've answered 72% yes now, 28% no.
I just don't really see how that would necessarily happen right now. It's too far out to say for sure, but I mean, the MJO is moving back, but you know, we don't really have the chance right now for a good Cape Verde style system because dry air is still really prevalent off the coast of Africa.
Yeah.
And that's really the place where you'd expect a major hurricane at this time of year, unless something manages to come through the Caribbean, but that doesn't look very likely right now.
No, definitely not. It's looking absolutely dead. David has posted a track map from the Vietnamese.
Yes, Strack, can you screen share it, mate, please?
I've got it here.
Oh,
You've got it there. Okay, 19.4 degrees north, 108.1 degrees east, tropical depression, 52 kilometers an hour.
They have it
winds.
They have it dead. In fact,
Son Tinh.
Closer to Vietnam than to China there, which it just doesn't look like on the satellite imagery. Although maybe it does.
Well,
yeah,
if you go to satellite imagery...
No, I can see that circulation now. Yeah, just the convection is extremely far away. Look again there. And you can see...
If you zoom in close enough, you'll see
the middle of the Gulf of Tonkin.
You'll see there's the swirl in the Gulf of Tonkin, but almost all the convection is displaced pretty far to the east off Hainan Island. But that little swirl of convection in the Gulf of Tonkin is what's holding it together for now.
Blimey. It's certainly an interesting state of affairs. There's also an invest in the Indian Ocean, is that right?
Is there? Check quickly.
David?
96B.
I thought you'd be on top of that one.
It is here, 96B.
Yeah, 96B.
See if we can find it.
Okay.
Almost inland right now. It's right off the coast of India by the Bengal Delta area. Expected to move northwest inland and dissipate.
Let's see what the Met Office over in India is saying.
Still a very heavy rainmaker indeed, though.
Yes, and that is a recipe for disaster in India. Any storm that's a rainmaker is bad news.
Especially in that area that tends to not be as wealthy. It's very susceptible to damage.
And the flooding.
Yeah, the flooding is always the danger with these systems.
Let's actually look at some... Go ahead.
Sorry, Nathan. The depression over the northwest Bay of Bengal has moved northwest with a speed of 7 kilometres an hour over the last 6 hours and crossed North Odisha, West Bengal coast between Balasore, Digha, around 4:30 p.m. It is likely to move northwest for some more time, then west-northwest. It is very likely to maintain the intensity during the next 12 hours, gradually weakening into a well-marked low-pressure system within 24 hours.
Oh. Alright, I know this is off topic, but I can't help but mention it. Someone has commented in the chat asking, what is Marcel? Well, you'll find out in 9 minutes.
Stay tuned,
it's going to be
viewers.
hell. It's Saturday night. We thought we'd put on a bit of a comedy show after our stream. This is just an hour-long storm update. We'll talk to you about that in a minute. But it's hellish, I think. I was just going to go somewhere else. Yes, just regarding the poll there. I'll take there's some comments about that poll as well, what people have been saying. So people have been voting yes or no. Do you think the Atlantic will see a major hurricane in August? Here's some responses. Yes, because August is near peak season, El Nino won't form for quite some time, and the main development region, whilst below average and still warm enough to produce a major hurricane. No, if there was an option for uncertain, I would choose that. But because there is not, I must say no. Most models produce a lot of dry air across the tropical Atlantic, Caribbean and Gulf of Mexico in August. And I have to say, it is very dry over there right now as well.
I remember, what was it? It was a couple weeks ago. Hank from his HQ, the Saharan air was actually reaching over his HQ, and it was very hazy where him and Isaac are.
Yeah, certainly.
It's been a very strong air layer this year up to this point.
Another comment saying don't start with the polls about major Atlantic hurricanes. Hoping for something similar to happen again, to Maria, for instance. Well, no, we don't hope for that at all, but we are realists here, and we just want to see your opinions on whether we're going to see something similar in August. Climatologically speaking, I would say it is pretty close, actually. And on the flip side, another comment there saying, yes, we can only hope. So, those are commenters in a nutshell. Yes, the end of August is near peak season. Yes, El Nino isn't close to forming. And sea surface temperatures near Africa are certainly warming. But if Saharan dust doesn't clear out soon, that may hinder a main development region storm. Yeah, indeed. No, this is because of El Nino. So there's one person thinking El Nino is going to prevent systems later on in the year. And 2 yeses there as well. So that's a very interesting cross-section of our viewers there. If you've got any questions in general about any of these storms that we're looking at right now in the last 7 minutes here, do get them in quickly.
Yeah, we were talking about the MJO a little bit. David posted a picture of the MJO models if you want to pull it up, and it looks absolutely like hell.
Ouch. Here they are. Talk us through this, Strat.
I mean, I don't really know what to say. I mean, you know, it shows it right now strongly in the Western Pacific, of course.
Not really. Western Pacific is at 12 o'clock.
Well, Western Pacific.
All right, yes. I was looking later on.
It moves it strongly into the Western Pacific over the next week or so, and then moves it towards the Western Hemisphere and Africa region. And then the models from there just go everywhere. They don't know what to say.
I'm slightly confused by this. So you see on the left-hand side is the Western Hemisphere and Africa. And then you've got Western Pacific at the top. So in the middle, what's that? Central and East Pacific? I assume?
Something like that, I guess.
So it's really making a beeline for that, by the looks of things, according to that model.
And they don't know what's happening there.
It looks like it's done a U-turn and it's heading north again. But look at the MJO, if it's inside a circle, is extremely weak. But then you look at the inner circle and you look at the green line and you work the distance to the circle, and it's very strong. And the other colour represents another date. So the green would be the current, but it's actually reverse and it appears to be going further out.
Yeah.
So very strong MJO pulse.
Yeah, interesting.
Someone in chat's asking that the Weather Channel says the Atlantic season is going to wake up at the end of July, beginning of August. What do we have to say about that?
Well, it doesn't look like at the minute.
I feel like the Weather Channel's just trying to amp up some extra views, to be honest.
I don't see it happening yet. And, you know, I sort of have vested interest since I'm going down to the tropics in August. So I am watching extremely closely, but it doesn't look like there's anything on the horizon, at least for the next 2 weeks.
Well, hopefully nothing happens, because you have a history of being gone while there's Category 5 or retired systems on the loose.
Let's not get into that. Please.
And really, MJO, I think we might have to re-clarify what we just said.
Yeah, someone's
It
asking
looks like it's a lot weaker.
Yeah. I mean...
Say again.
I'm just going to...
I thought you were saying it was stronger just now.
It looks
Yeah,
pretty
well,
strong.
I've just had to clarify, but I've got an updated image.
Oh, you didn't post
Oh,
an
it's
updated image.
No,
Oh.
because I didn't know. Okay, here it comes.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's much
So you can
different.
Hold on. I don't have it on
That's
my...
much different.
Hold on, I don't have it on my screen yet. Yes, that is a massive difference.
Wait,
Yeah,
what is
folks,
the other
we just,
one, then?
you know...
Thanks to one of our members.
What
we're-
is...
We're running out of time here. We've got to wrap up the show, I'm afraid.
I think we just have to show a quick correction that the MJOs in the West...
We've shown the correction.
are weakening.
We gotta go. Marcel Holos with Holos Unleashed is coming up next. It's going to be an absolute madhouse comedy hour coming up. Your fun and entertainment for Saturday night. If you've got any questions about the tropics, go to our social platforms. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you again soon. Good night.
Our live coverage continues in a moment.
You can follow Force 13's outlets, the website, force13.com, our YouTube page, youtube.com/Force13, on Facebook under the same name, Force13, and our Twitter handle, it's @Force13 if you wish to get in touch. You can also add Force